All right, this is Libertarian Overwatch, and we're doing something a little bit different today. If you can't see, I have my Fury 325 jersey on. So today we're going to be covering roller coasters. In case you did not know, I am a huge roller coaster fan. Actually, recently just got to ride my 100th coaster this past weekend. Unfortunately, it was a terrible one. It was Flying Cobras at Carowinds. But I did happen to ride this bad boy right here, Fury 325. I got to ride this one 14 or 15 times over 2 days the past week. And apparently I got it right in time because now it has been down for a few days, along with some other B&M rides. I've been hearing that Raptor in Cedar Point has been down, another real good B&M invert. And then I've also heard that Iron Menace, another dive coaster that I've done, which was fine. Very short, but fine. So essentially, I kind of want to revisit my Substack here where I talked about the B&M question and kind of go over this a little bit. Now, if you're wondering, which I don't know if you are or not, but I want to break it down. My personal favorite roller coasters. At number 5, I have Wildcats Revenge at Hershey Park. A running theme you'll see in this top 5 is the RMC coasters. I think they are just incredible, great pacing, super fun, great inversions, and that one in particular reminds me a lot of Steel Vengeance. And once you see, as I go into my top 5, you'll see that one very present there. But anyways, I love that one. Number 4, right above it, I'm going to put Iron Gwazi. Also just fantastic. Excellent pacing. I understand why some people would say this is their favorite RMC. It is fantastic. It is really great. It does feel a little short, but outside of that, there's really not much of a time to catch a breather, and definitely the best first drop on any RMC coaster. Number 3, Fury 325. It's so long. It's so fast. It's so great. That turnaround element, the musical note, you're just out of your seat like the whole way going into the hive dive down there. Excellent stuff. Top Thrill 2 at number 2. Just adrenaline. Going back up like that, going 400 feet in the air, 100 some miles an hour. Fantastic. Number 1, Steel Vengeance. Steel Vengeance is just so phenomenal. That outer bank at the top is just chef's kiss. Going back inside of the foundation of it, and you're just spinning and spinning different ways. It's insane. It's insane. People who say that Maverick is better than Steel Vengeance, I will never understand you. Anyways, that's going to inflame some people. That's all right. So as we can see here, this is my Substack about it, the B&M question. And so as you can see here, an investigation into how the smoothest name in roller coasters began facing turbulence. So kind of as we mentioned here, and there's a great picture of the Griffin there. For a long time, B&M has been this manufacturer that has made such excellent rides. They made Griffin, Apollo's Chariot. I think I kind of dive into some of the ones down here that everyone really, loves. But recently, it has been, and see, as you can see, since I have Pantheon is my 6th now, the 5th being replaced by Wildcats Revenge. But anyways, B&M recently, though, has really just been hitting the skids, as it were. So I want to go over here and looking at some of their more recent rides and kind of go over them. Some of them I've ridden, some of them I've not. I have ridden Candemonium, and I think Candemonium was actually a really great hyper coaster. So that one gets a pass for sure. And it's really around this right here, the Dr. Diabolical Cliffhanger, where we start to see a lot of complaints from people. People saying that these rides are rattly. The B&M Rattle, people who are in the coaster community, as it were, they're very familiar with that rattle. And I've been reading reviews about that one, and they have really pointed to that one as kind of like the starting point where we're starting to see some of these concerns. Now, I have ridden Pipeline the Surf Coaster. Now, the difference is as you can see here, this is a stand-up coaster. So this one's actually very smooth. But obviously, it's a very different experience from one where you're actually seated, on the track and things like that. You're actually standing and at sometimes having your feet kind of flying up. This is a really great coaster. I really enjoyed this one. But yeah, then you get Iron Menace, where especially near the end, that rattle as you're coming in, you can definitely feel that B&M rattle. Penguin Trek, terrible ride. Terrible. Oh, man. And we had to wait for like an hour and a half. And then they make you walk through a penguin exhibit at the end as, you go from the hot outdoors in Orlando, and then you are forced into a 30-degree kind of environment. Man, this ride sucks. And there's Phoenix Rising, which it's kind of intense for one of these kind of rides, but super short. I don't necessarily remember the rattle like that when I rode it. at Busch Gardens Tampa. But these are the ones that did it in for me. Rapterra and Big Bad Wolf, the Wolf's Revenge. These rides feel like they were made in 1990. And I'm not even joking when I say that. I recently rode the Big Bad Wolf because I am relatively close to that park. I rode this, I would say, maybe a month ago or so. I got off mad. I was like, how is it this rough? This ride has been around for 1 year. It is rough as heck. Same with Rapterra. There are just certain points. I would kind of give a shout out here to Coaster Studios. They break it down like where specifically it feels rough, and I agree with them wholeheartedly. There are just certain parts where it feels so rough. And like I said, these are brand new rides. Same kind of issue we're seeing with Wrath of Rashaza, if I pronounced that correctly. All the comments on the Coaster Studio video when they did the POV of this was, holy rattle. You can go through the comment section, just everyone's commenting on the rattle. And now they have Tormenta, which I have not fully seen the reception yet. And shout out to Theme Park Brandon. He also mentioned that, people who are writing it now, it's like the media team and things like that, the people who are getting paid. So they're not necessarily going to say anything negative about like a brand new coaster, especially one that is a 300-foot dive coaster. But as you can see, we've had a really rough track history here ever since that Dr. Diabolical cliffhanger, which I kind of point to here in my review here. And as you can see here, I kind of highlighted, this is kind of what you can see with that rattle right there. Just so clear, and all the comments were all pointing it out. Man, you can see that 40% figure there. I went through, I calculated how many comments there were and how many commented on the rattle or the negative kind of comments on it. Someone said like Bounce Terra, and I was like, I don't know if that's the best nickname. You can kind of step your game up here. But anyways, this track record they're on is pretty rough. And some of the overseas rides that B&M has produced since then, we haven't seen some of these issues. So essentially, I've been trying to do an investigation, figure out like what's going on here, and things like that. So I kind of tackle some of this here. This video I would really, really like you guys to check out. It is Ryan, the ride mechanic, and he talks about how a few potential causes, and this is like the mechanics of the actual coaster and things like that. So we're talking about the rings, the bearings, the smooth rotation, and things like that, and how they're adjustable while B&Ms are not, and they're fixed. So providing a really good kind of example of that. Now, this is where I started to get into my own investigation that I thought was like super, super interesting. So just days before we're seeing the Dr. Diabolical cliffhanger, there is a kind of subsidiary that is filed right around this time, as you can see here. And this is a kind of a services. It kind of talks about what this new subsidiary does. So we're looking at, like I said, roughly like 1 million here, some additional capital, and that it is a engineering mandate, construction, the ability to issue loans or trade in any goods and things like that. And then you can also always translate this to English and kind of look at what we have here. So this is some of the information behind it. So my kind of theory along with this is that around the time of the pandemic, the industry is really struggling. I mean, the parks are all closed, and when you're not pulling in that revenue, especially during like peak seasons, it's really going to hurt the industry a lot. So when the subsidiary gets launched, like I said, 2 years after the pandemic really starts, I guess really 2019, but we don't really start to see the impact until 2020. So I think that subsidiary is something that's very important to notice. It's really not mentioned hardly anywhere. Like I said, the only place I could really find it was this kind of Swiss magazine here, where it's very, very briefly mentioned. And there's not much else kind of describing it at all. But essentially my kind of theory here, I guess you could say, is that there were some cost cutting done at B&M. People still love B&M coasters. They are ones that people will pay millions of dollars for. And so I guess they kind of figured they could maybe cut some corners and things like that. Because as you can see here, steel prices are going through the roof. To cover those costs, we may need to cut costs, to cover that and things like that. And also, the volatility where we see here, where they're talking about like our steel costs are up this much. Tariffs are playing a really big impact and things like that. And in addition, Forbes was pointing out how the Russia-Ukraine conflict is another instance where we're seeing the steel prices go up, around 85% and things like that. So, and also highlight this, I wanted to put this out before Tormenta came out because, like I said, I got kind of scared. Like, you have a 300-foot dive coaster, if that's rattling, that's gonna be a rough sell, you know. So this subsidiary is something that I think that is super important that people have not really kind of researched or investigated. I have tried to call B&M, but they are international. My phone is not making those international calls, unfortunately. But let the record show it has been trialed. And now let us kind of dive into a few different things here. Now, something I want to highlight too, because there are rumors going around all over the place about this. Now, this is from screamscape.com, and it's talking about how Clearmont is kind of moving, and it shut down the past few weeks. This right here, this rumor, and I call it rumor because of this. As we can see here at the bottom, when I click on this, it links to Facebook. And then some of these other ones are also linking to Facebook, and kind of taking stuff that's said on Facebook as truth, as face value, and things like that. And this rumor has spread everywhere. And specifically, they talk about going to Hungary, implying that they're going to work at Hungary. And as it says here, it's just a random Facebook post that a former employee had. This is where you got to be really careful because these stories can expand greatly. Like I said, everyone now kind of takes it verbatim, saying like, "Yep, this is what's happening. They're moving to Hungary." Is it possible this is happening? Maybe. Recently, Air Force One in Atlanta, there were rumors going around that was going to close down, and I said, "Let's wait a minute." They announced it the next day. Next day, they said, "Yep, it's closing down." So I was like, "Okay, that rumor did turn out to be accurate." We do not have any confirmation of this beside kind of this right here. Like I said, kind of highlighting that. And they say Hungary here, where other rumors have it within the United States in different areas and things like that. But none of these have like the documented things that I am looking for as, a journalist, as it were, someone who's investigating some of these things. So I also want to point to this. I have this photo. So as we can see here in 2025, there's still parts from B&M going to Clearmont. This is the most recent one we see. So we know as of 2025, they're still working on things. Maybe that's the Tormenta pieces. Who knows at this point? But I did want to show that. And then another thing I want to show over here is, over here on the Screamscape, we were talking about maybe going to Hungary. Over here, it's talking about being sold to Copper Steel. Now, I have looked at Clearmont's website, B&M's website, Copper Steel. None of them seem to have any confirmation of this. Right here, we have this limited warranty deed as like their link. It's a dead link. It doesn't work here. It doesn't work on Internet Archive. So I'm okay being wrong on this, but as of right now, there is no confirmation that this relationship between Clearmont and B&M has stopped. And I also don't think that Clearmont is necessarily the issue here. I think that the issue here is B&M trying to cut costs and things like that. Whatever those mechanics may be. I mean, there are tons of nails and steel and just different parts that go into every roller coaster and things like that. And as I point out, the COVID experience, as it were, was something that impacted everyone, and especially the steel industry. And when you have rides that really rely on that, I mean, it's going to be impacted as a result. Wood prices and lumber and stuff has been impacted as well. Granted, none of these have been steel coasters, but I think that is really the main kind of culprit here. I know some people have mentioned maybe it's Six Flags and they're not maintaining it well. Well, the problem with that is I'm riding Rapterra and Big Bad Wolf as soon as they kind of come out. In fact, I was there Rapterra opening night. I waited 3 hours, and I remember going through it and saying, "Wow, this is pretty fun." But yeah, that part felt really rough, and that was opening night. So I don't think it's a maintenance issue. I think this is a B&M issue specifically. I'm not having this problem with Intamin. Intamin, yeah, their rides get shut down quite a bit. Pantheon at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg has definitely had its moments of being shut down. The wheels, of course, at Pantherian, Intimidator 305, those have always been an issue too. But I'm only really having these issues with B&M, and people are pointing it out. It's called the B&M Rattle for a reason, But anyways, also wanted to kind of hop in here and kind of show you what I'm talking about with some of these things. So let's go to Penguin Trek. This is Captain Coaster, which is kind of like an aggregate. This is like your Rotten Tomatoes, as it were. As you can see here, the score is 44%, and I think, excessive rattle. So these are the kind of things you're going to see with these more recent B&M rides and things like that. And if you search it, you can see rattle is horrible. Rattle. The rattle isn't that bad, TBH. You're lying. This ride should not have a rattle. It's a brand new family coaster from one of the world's leading manufacturers. Yes, absolutely. That covers it perfectly. Yeah, as you can see here, rattle, rattle, rattle. Now let's check out some of the other ones. Like I said, this issue is pretty persistent. Um, I want to check out the most recent ones because we have two from 2026. So we have Barracuda Strike at SeaWorld San Antonio. And if I search rattle, as we can see right there, it does have a noticeable rattle in the back row, however. Right in the back row, and I noticed a rattle, things like that. Now let's see Tormenta. Tormenta just opened up, so I don't know if we're going to get too many kind of reviews at this point. In fact, we might not have any reviews. All right, so we do have smoothness, as a couple people are pointing out here. Some have head banging. We'll see on that. That could also just be in terms of height and things like that. How tall people are can also impact the head banging kind of element of it. I know B&M floorless coasters are an example of that people have dealt with in the past and things like that. So yeah, basically that is my kind of analysis on the B&M Rattle situation. Like I said, I think this is a B&M issue, not necessarily an issue with the parks themselves. So if you enjoyed this, please check out the Substack. It is Libertarian Overwatch. We cover a whole bunch of different things on there. Our thing that we're working on the most is the Anatomy of a Regime Change series, but we also do investigations like this of, why is one of the best manufacturers in the world? Why are they struggling right now and things like that. So if you enjoyed this, please share it and give it a like, and I will see you in the next one.